Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. Dusty here, the host of the show. If you're watching the video version of the podcast, you probably already see, and you probably have already know who this person is, but I would like to introduce him anyways. This is my friend Roberto Blake, one of, if not the top YouTube educator on the internet. He works with creators all throughout the day, has so many resources for them, and I cannot wait to bring you the resource of this podcast with him just going off on some of these biggest struggles that YouTubers deal with. But I would like to promote something of his before we do that. He has a book called Create Something Awesome, a wonderful, wonderful book, an asset for any creator, and that's just one of the tree branches on his tree that he can offer you as a creator. Roberto, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Dusty. Thank you for having me back.
Yep, I think we're going to make this a yearly thing. We have a end of the year show with the Nimmin brothers. I think we're going to make this a mid-year, maybe June or July show, summertime show with me and you. Catch up, talking about something really cool going on in the creator space. So with all of that said, we are not going to waste any of your time today. We are just going to dive in because I know how both Roberto and I are. We can get a little lengthy and a little, we can go really hard into a topic. So we're definitely just going to jump into it today. We are going to be talking about the top 10 struggles that creators deal with. So we're going to be talking about them. We're going to go one at a time, and I'm going to kind of go and bounce the ideas and the thoughts from Roberto. So Roberto, go ahead and let's tee it up. What is number 10 on that list of creator struggles?
So we're going to go in backwards order. Then,
we're going, you see what I did there? We're going backwards order. Yes, 10 to 1. That's right.
All right. So I'm going to go with monetization as the thing that I'm going to put number 10 there, kind of at the bottom. So a lot of creators, they get into this and monetization is at the forefront of their mind and they struggle with it. A lot of people, if they're going YouTube as the route, they obsessed over the YouTube partner program. I think a lot of that is not just about the actual money and being compensated for their work. I think it's actually a status game of like, hey, you remember when YouTube moved the goalpost and not everyone was immediately a YouTube partner? The status of being a YouTube partner, having something in common with like an iJustine or a Mr. Beast or a Marquez Brownlee, being able to say, oh, I'm a YouTube partner too. It made them feel closer to the creator that they looked up to, whether it's one of the people I mentioned or someone like more like Markiplier or PewDiePie or something like that. So it was a status thing. But in terms of monetization, they look at AdSense as the end all be all because what's in the culture? The culture is a lot of people, oh, I make all this money with AdSense. The culture is you see the top 20 highest earning YouTubers every year. And it's these creators who get billions of views a year. A lot of them are gamers. And then people go, oh, I'm going to be a gamer. I'm going to do this because they're making all this money. And then they get AdSense and they realize, oh, crap, I'm a gamer. I'm making like $2 CPMs, like $4 CPMs. What the hell? What did I get myself into? I'm barely getting views. It's, oh, wow. I get 2 million views as a gamer and I can't even pay rent off of it. What the hell, man? So monetization is this big thing that a lot of creators struggle with, especially the working class creators, the people who work a 9-to-5 job, 40 hours a week, then still have to find 10, 20 hours for content creation. And so monetization becomes very difficult. I tell people, hey, I understand that a lot of you AdSense is a goal for you, and you absolutely do need to hit the requirements to be a viable channel anyway. However, you don't have to wait for that to monetize. You can go ahead and you can sell something directly to your audience. Oh, I have a small audience. It's like literally 10 people buying from you is going to do a lot more from you than the 100,000 views that you need for like YouTube to pay you out. It's going to cost a lot of these people 100,000 views to make their first $100 with ad revenue. Whereas if they stop turning their nose up at getting 10 to 20 people to buy from them, they'd have their first $100. So monetization is a really important thing. I'm glad that YouTube lowered the monetization requirements, at least for fan funding, so that fans can vote with their wallet and they can support their favorite creators via donation or via channel memberships. You know, if they only have 500 subscribers, but as long as they meet the watch time requirement of 3,000 hours, I really wish they had lowered it to 2,000, but it's like, we'll take what we can get, right? So it's that sort of thing. Monetization is a huge struggle for the small creator.
I think it's a struggle also because a lot of times people, they aspire to get monetized as opposed to aspire to be a good creator. They think that's what they should, that's what they're aspiring to do. I just want to make an extra $100, right? That's great. I want to as well, but you need to have that passion to create as well. And as we're recording this, I think of AdSense and the partner program, and I'm so thankful for it. And I know you are too, but I think of the different various ways that you can monetize as a creator. As we're recording this right now, Mr. Musk and over at Twitter has allowed creators to basically monetize their Twitter feed and get paid, for their impressions and views and things over on
if
Twitter.
You get 5 million impressions.
Right. So you get 5 million. Yeah, that's a pretty steep, pretty lofty number there. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are a number of ways that you can get monetized. And, just for me, and I've said this here on the podcast, but it's been a long, long time, I have just a bunch of baskets, and I'll list a few of them now. I get paid to coach and consult people on their businesses for YouTube and podcasting. I get paid. I sell teacher resources. My wife's a teacher. We sell them on a website called Teachers Pay Teachers. I get podcast sponsorships. I get affiliate revenue. You get the ad revenue from YouTube. You get the revenue from me and my brother-in-law sell spreadsheets on Etsy. There's things that we can do, right, to really break out of just that ad revenue. So be creative. Think about it. You don't always have to do it with the status quo. So I agree with you, Roberto. Monetization, number 10 for sure. Let's go in and go ahead and talk about number 9. What's number 9 on your list?
So number 9, I would say, is content strategy. And I think this is a really hard one for a lot of people. With content strategy, which is one of the primary things that people do come to me for and that I coach in, they get a lot of it twisted. They get a lot of it twisted because they think it's all about trying to go viral. They keep looking at the Mr. Beast of the world and everything like that. You don't need that to be a successful creator or to claim to be. The reality is that there was a case study that they did of all the content uploaded to YouTube all the way up until 2020, right before Shorts. Before Shorts, 88% of all the content that ever existed on YouTube never got 1,000 views. Never got 1,000 views. Like, think about it. The entire inventory of billions upon billions of videos, and 88% of the billions of videos uploaded to YouTube have never gotten 1,000 views. Okay. And I think this case study, it might have been Oxford Economics. It was one of these big data research firms. But the point is, and yeah, this is prior to Shorts. I still don't think that you could really lump Shorts in with that. And I would argue that the number is probably still just as bad, given that we're talking about billions of video inventory over the course of like over 15 years at that point. Okay, from 2005, February 2005, all the way through 2020. It's like, that's a lot of years of content prior to Shorts, right? Shorts are getting 50 billion daily views right now, crushing TikTok, literally. So what's my point with that? Content strategy. The majority of people don't upload to YouTube in any intentional way. The majority of people uploading to YouTube are young people who are not being strategic, not being thoughtful, not being intentional. And it's also a lot of people who are not necessarily tech savvy or YouTube savvy, uploading content the majority of the time to YouTube. Let's be very real about that. So a lot of people don't realize that there are 100 million channels globally, worldwide. People debate me on this number. Social Blade tracks 60 million channels worldwide currently, but it doesn't track channels that it feels are too small to track. And it also doesn't track a lot of the international channels, believe it or not. So yes, it's 100 million global channels worldwide on YouTube. The number that everyone cites is 50 million. They're citing that because there are 50 million active monthly uploaders to YouTube, again, according to one of these data research firms. But even if you take that number, let's take the lowball number of 50 million YouTube channels. Okay, there are less than 500,000 channels globally with any kind of play button. Silver for 100,000, gold for 1 million, diamond for 10 million globally. There are currently, if you go and look up on playboard.co and then go to the insights page, there are less than 60,000 US content creators with silver play buttons. And half of those are going to be your big media companies, WWE, Ellen DeGeneres, Conan O'Brien. It's going to be celebrities. Half of those are going to be celebrities. Adobe has like 5 silver play buttons. Microsoft has like 3 silver play buttons. Fox has like 8. There's like, so a bunch of them are going to be media conglomerates. So like in terms of US homegrown real content creators, it's probably 30,000 of us that are not companies like that. So you could fit the silver play button holders in the US into Madison Square Garden and we could all party together. So I'll be there with my 500,000. So the ratio and the number, if you look at it, of like the people who have actually like quote unquote made it, you're talking about, even if you're talking about 50 million, well, okay, not even 1 million have made it. It's not even really 500,000. So like, what are you talking about? You're talking about less than 1% using that number. If you use what I believe the real number to be, then you're talking about like 0.5%. Then when you get into gold play buttons, it's about 35,000 gold play buttons worldwide, million subscribers. And that's like what they call being famous now, is 1 million subscribers. And then it's not even, I don't think, 5,000 people, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like 3,500 channels with a diamond play button at 10 million. And so when you really get down to it, like, again, that's like, okay, there are more people that have climbed Mount Everest than have gotten to 10 million on YouTube and are really, truly, truly like on the same level as like a celebrity, on the same level of like a Kardashian. So why? And again, I would owe a lot of this is down to content strategy to be able to grow a channel. Content strategy is key here. You have to know what people want. There are things like, there are niches or verticals of YouTube you can go in that maybe they have a big market, but they're also probably the most competitive thing in the world. Yes, there's a lot of people to watch gaming content. How hard is it to compete when they already have good options? Where are you going to fit in when they already have good options to watch for gaming content? Like, oh, well, I want to be an entertainer. Okay, great. What is it going to take to be the best entertainer on YouTube and actually get those views? Just because something has a big total addressable market doesn't mean you can compete in it. And then where you can be competitive, even a niche like mine, helping other content creators, I have my like total maximum addressable audience is rather limited. How many people are actually trying to take it seriously? Most people are hobby creators. How many people are going to buckle down and try to build a strategy or really try to go for this, or are not going to be lazy and like make a good thumbnail, spend 2 hours on a thumbnail by itself? Like, how many people are going to do that? Versus, I just want to post whatever I want, and I guess I'll just wait for luck to work out or so. And so it's like, so many people have the attitude of, oh, it's luck, oh, it's a lottery. They don't want to be strategic. They don't want to do what it takes to craft the first 8 seconds of a video perfectly. They don't want to sit there and spend an hour agonizing over a title like the biggest creators of all time do. The biggest creators of all time literally spend 12 hours just working on one idea, not even yet alone filming it. I mean, the biggest creators, they're all on nightmare mode, like I posted about on Twitter and everything like that. They're all doing, the biggest content creators are all spending 500 hours and like multiple teams worth of manpower, 500 hours to 1,000 hours to make the best content on YouTube. It's like, good luck getting 1 million views, spending less than 100 hours on a video now. The level of quality, the goalpost has moved so dramatically. And I think people take that for granted. Content strategy actually legitimately matters. But again, you also don't need those kind of views to make a good living on YouTube. You and I know people who make a good living on YouTube, not even getting 1 million views a month. But they have the right strategy. They have the right strategy, both on a content level, on a audience engagement level, a monetization level. They know how to make content that will attract the right brands to them. Content strategy is more than just trying to beat the YouTube algorithm. In fact, it doesn't really rely on the YouTube algorithm at all when it comes to content strategy. Content strategy is about alignment with the audience, understanding the right market to play in at the right time, understanding what content would be right size in your life. Like, okay, if you don't have 100 hours to commit to a project, what do you have and what's the most you can get out of 10 hours? Like, again, this is one of the big struggles is, and by the way, it's because most of the biggest, most popular people make all of this look and sound simpler than it is by just saying, make great content.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get tired of, I don't know, you may not, I get tired of hearing that, right? Like, that's wonderful. I want people to know
it's
that.
The most garbage advice of all time, because it's like, well, doy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Like, it's good. You need to make better content. That's fine. But like,
yeah, you might as well tell people,
much...
it's like, you might as well tell people, oh, just be handsome.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we could have that conversation. That's for a completely different podcast, right? I went on a tangent on that one time and just completely trashed the episode because I thought I'm going to get so much heat for this.
Sure.
I had a lady on the podcast about I don't know, about a month and a half ago. Her name was Elise Speed, and she runs a crochet crafting channel. And I'm not going to say exactly how much money she's making. I asked her off air. What I'll tell you is she's making more than doctors and lawyers make. Okay, and she's not getting a billion views or even a million views, right? But she has a content strategy of I know what I need to upload. I know the bits of content that the types of videos I need to do. I know what my audience wants, which is a big deal. And then she puts it out there and she publishes it. And so I could not agree more. Like where we are on YouTube is people think they have to be the next Mr. Beast. Now you may be the 0.001%. That's great. I hope you are. But for the most part,
I'm going to just tell them
you're
that
probably not. Yeah.
I'm just going to tell them that you're not realistically.
I'm being too nice. Yeah.
No, I'm going to tell them you're not. I'm going to tell you that that's okay. And that you can still like, it's not be Mr. Beast, be or Elon Musk, be Jeff Bezos or bust. It's not Beast Bezos or bust. Okay. It's not Beast Bezos. That's the soundbite. It's not Beast Bezos or bust. Okay. You can very reasonably be a content creator who makes content for an audience that you really care about. It can be something you enjoy. But the thing is, you have to actually be really good at what you're doing. You have to understand those people, and you have to be willing to put your ego aside first. Like a lot of content creators, they get this like very narcissistic view of I want to make art. And it's like, okay, I have nothing against people making art. I consider myself an artist. Smart thing I did was when I do my photography, and you've seen like my wildlife stuff and everything like that, I barely post it. Why? I'm not trying to pursue that and do that for a living. If I want to make art, I already understand that for me, at least, it means, okay, I'm not going to make money on that because the minute I introduced money, it's going to be somehow tainted in some way, shape, or form. And this may not be true for everybody. And I'm not against artists making money or profiting from their craft. I'm just making the point that when you have to do things on behalf of other people and you have to serve other people and you have to give people what they want, if you want to make art, it starts to influence your art. It's not your art anymore. It's now something that you're doing for these other people. And then that can take a lot of the fun or enjoyment out of it. Or when you have to do it for a brand, the brand isn't going to let you just do whatever the hell you want because you have to represent them. So when you have to serve other people or represent other people, it's very hard to align that with the art that you have and this passion that you have. There are compromises. And if you want to make uncompromising art, I find the answer in my mind is very simple. Do something that is thoughtful and strategic that you don't despise and you don't hate, that you're very good at, make money at it, and then you can buy yourself the ability to make art that you never have to take a dime for and that you never have to compromise and that nobody else has a say in. But people take that attitude to their YouTube channel of just wanting to make what they want. The audience feedback means nothing to them. The market means nothing to them. What viewers want means nothing to them. They have an absolute contempt for the idea of putting the audience first. And I understand where they're coming from. I just don't think it's a reasonable position if you want to be successful and other people have to get you there. A content creator is nothing without the support of the audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that.
How are you going to get there if you don't put the audience first? Why are they going to support you if you're not prioritizing them?
Yeah, people ask me all the time, I'm getting no engagement on my videos. Well, are you commenting on the ones that you do get? Are you interacting with these people? And, community growth, as always, and you'll probably hear me say this a lot during this episode, that's another topic for another podcast. We could go a complete episode on just community growth.
Look, I'll come back monthly or quarterly if you want.
I love it. All right, so we got monetization. We got content strategy. What's number 8?
Storytelling, which almost seems to contradict what I just said about making art. Storytelling. I have a very simple framework that I teach for storytelling when I'm working with creators who are trying to grow, people who are already monetized. Mostly, I don't work with people who aren't monetized most of the time. You have to at least be monetized and have the capacity to make money from your channel, or you have to already have a business or a trade. And then if you're not monetized, then I'll work with you because I don't want to take money from people who I don't think have the potential or capacity to start making it back very readily, right? That's just a personal preference I have in who I work with. One of the things I came up with a storytelling framework was I tell people that when it comes to making high quality content on YouTube, because there's a difference between value and quality and then consistency, which we would call quantity, right? So what I teach people is that value exists in topic, title, thumbnail, and timing. You've heard me talk about that, the 4 T's of that quadrant, right? Topic, title, Topic, title, thumbnail, and timing dictate views, because that tells the viewer, hey, this is valuable to me, this is relevant to me, this is what I'm interested in. Like, value is about like what we will prioritize and give attention to. Quality is our rating of the experience that we're having, and that comes down to production quality, performance quality, and also the quality of the personality. So production is lights, camera, audio. And then performance is your confidence on camera, your communication style, and your connection emotionally with the audience, right? So then that's the performance aspect. So one of those you can throw money at. One of those is a skill game of just becoming a better presenter, a better speaker. You know, that's just the emotional intelligence side, and that's the performance quality. Take improv classes, go to Toastmasters, do that sort of thing, right? Or you could just skill up through experience for $0 in performance. Talent really lies in the personality side, because talent is for the personality side is going to really come in, because it's style, structure, and storytelling. So it's style in terms of the visual style of the video and the edit, and then it's structure in terms of the build out of that and the pacing and the timing of how the message and all that stuff is conveyed and storyboarded. And then there's the storytelling aspect, and storytelling aspect is what is really important, but more important for, I would say, entertainment channels and lifestyle channels than anything, is the storytelling capacity, and to be able to build up that emotional investment. This is where all these things that I mentioned, like these 9 things, are what watch time and retention are entirely built on. We can't watch a poorly produced video with bad audio. It's just not going to happen. Or something that looks like it was sloppily filmed. We can't watch something with bad timing, bad pacing. We can't watch somebody whose delivery sucks. We really just can't, and that we can't connect with emotionally. We can't endure something and understand something if the structure is like really poor, if like it was not developed, if it was not properly outlined and scripted in a way that makes sense in terms of the overall format. That's going to be bad. So like, you know, and then the storytelling has to be on point. This has to be something where we have some kind of capacity for investment. And I will tell you straight up that I think that one of the best storytellers on YouTube right now is CoffeeZilla. If you look at the content he's been making, he is one of the best and most engaging storytellers of the current generation of YouTube, in a way that I don't think we've seen before in a very, very long time. A lot of people get, you know, credit for storytelling. Ryan Trahan is fantastic at storytelling, you know, but he's also primarily, I would argue, the like star of the story a lot of the time. And I think what I like about CoffeeZilla is that he's taking a subject matter that could otherwise maybe be dry, usually white collar crime. White collar crime is something that most people wouldn't think that they're interested in. Mm-hmm. He can make you very emotionally invested in white collar crime.
Yeah,
with his investigation. So I think storytelling is what a lot of creators struggle with, because they don't know how to take something and make it the most interesting version of that subject matter possible.
Of that thing. Yes, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's funny that you say that. Early on, over 12 years ago now, I had a sheet of paper, and I wrote down what I wanted my tutorials to do. And I watched about, I don't know, 50 hours worth of tutorials back in the day, early YouTube. And number 1 on my list, I still have the list somewhere, it said, I will not have annoying music in the background of my how-to guides. I will make sure my audio is in the top 0.5% of people on YouTube. It will sound better than any tutorial that you'll ever hear. I will get straight to the point. I will be concise. I will make sure they'll know what they're getting into in the beginning few seconds of the video. And I will give them all resources that are needed in the description of the video. And I still do that today. I have very clean and clear screencast videos, and the audio's crisp. I don't have any annoying background music. You can understand my voice, and it has really served me well. I think of storytellers, I think of like Peter McKinnon and how he can tell stories with his photography and his
that's what allowed him to break the glass ceiling of the photography niche, and High Tide raises all boats. No one aside from Digital Rev, which was also a company, and it was only really because of Kai and Locke anyway, could break 1 million subscribers in the photography niche. It couldn't be done. A decade of work, and you couldn't do it. Jared Polin, nobody could do it.
Right.
Peter McKinnon comes along, breaks the glass ceiling, and then high tide raises all boats.
Yep. And, you know, I had Jared on the podcast years back, and he is a
One of
good
my favorite
storyteller,
creators. One of my
really good
favorite creators.
storyteller.
Yeah.
But what Peter McKinnon can do is he can take a tutorial video like how to edit your photos in Lightroom, and he can add these sound effects that with his mouth, and he can do these things that'll make you care about stuff that you just really don't care about. And that's you know, that's the attribute of a great storyteller. And so I could not agree more with what you're saying, making people care about what you're talking about, and get them invested. And I love that. So, all right. So now we are on number 7. What is number 7 on the list?
Learning video editing, and everyone's intimidated by this, and people also try to weasel their way out of it. Also, there's this trend where people just like are over editing their content. I think you have to over edit the first 8 seconds at this point, especially with YouTube doing autoplay. I consider autoplay strategy part of the thumbnail at this point, which goes into one of the other things I teach in content strategy is understanding these aspects of things like the hook, the open, the close, call to action, all these things, even in the anatomy of a video. No one would watch this, but I really want to make I have to find a title for it, but it's like the anatomy of a video. Actually, what they would watch is the anatomy of a viral video.
Yeah.
They'll watch not the anatomy of a video, but they'll watch the anatomy of a viral video if I do a deconstruction of a viral video. But oh, I know exactly what that thumbnail looks like in terms of I know exactly what that thumbnail
You're
looks
hearing
like.
it here first, folks. You're hearing how creators come up with ideas. I do the same thing. I'll be like I'll be walking down the street or something, getting my daily walk in, and I'm like, oh no, I got a video idea. And then I start like piecing it together right then and there. So
I'm adding it to my notepad literally as we speak.
I think that when it comes to exactly what you're talking about, video editing, there are a ton of tools out there. You and I were talking about tools before we hit record. I was telling you, hey, have you ever used Notion? And it's kind of my daily driver for everything that I'm doing. I used to use Evernote, and the tools can oftentimes get in the way of the actual content creation. So maybe speak on that a bit of, you know, like how you decide how you're going to edit your videos, because I'm with you. I'm not necessarily a big fan of like, over editing happens a lot, but you need to find your style and make it yours.
I have almost, I think it's now 75 or 80 videos on my channel that have over 100,000 views. Most of them are not over edited. And the thing is, I have under-edited videos that overperform versus some of my green screen videos, like my green screen, and also like I still am going to do green screen videos for time to time. It's part of one. I actually like this style of video, and I have some creative thoughts around like, oh, I like seeing this. I like seeing some of the things that I do in my green screen videos that are not possible to do in other types of content. However, I will be honest. I'll admit this. One of the reasons I do my green screen videos is partly one, it does bump sponsor rates a little bit to have an over edited video. So I will tell you that a highly polished, highly edited video does command the respective sponsors and does command higher fees. So that is one aspect of it. There's a monetary game there. But I will say more than driving me by the monetary game is there's a little bit of vanity and ego in my editing skills because I have been editing since I was a kid. I'm 39. I've been editing since I was 13 years old. So there's a little bit of vanity and ego of saying, you know, I actually do know all these techniques. I actually have mastered Premiere Pro. And once in a while, I want to make a video, like in the face of any comments or haters of like, in your face, I actually probably am a better editor than you. Like of the people who like, oh, you just make simple talking head videos. Or like, well, to your point about tutorials, sometimes I feel like everything you edit in an information-based video becomes a distraction to the audience, and they just want good, clear, concise information, details, a process. They do want some show and tell, but they don't want more than that if it's unnecessary, and they don't want sound effects everywhere and like all this other stuff and everything like that. There's a point where it just becomes annoying and it becomes trying too hard. Sometimes I do want to make a video to dunk on a critic in the sense that not ever addressing or acknowledge them, but just like editing better than I know that they could have, like you can't get this result, but you're going to criticize me kind of thing like this. So again, I will tell you that it's my pettiness and vanity and ego that leads to some level of over editing, but I can rationalize it because it also does increase sponsorship fees. So I get to be petty and get paid at the same time. So I'm happy to do that.
A lot of it with editing is finding the tool that you're comfortable with, you know, getting comfortable with it by learning it, watching YouTube videos on how to do it, and just get comfortable with your editing tool and try to get better every single time.
But don't let it get Yeah, don't let it get overwhelming or in your way,
No,
though.
don't. You don't. It shouldn't. I literally use ScreenFlow for Mac. I use Camtasia for
I love
PC.
Camtasia.
And if I need to, I'll toss them into Premiere Pro if I wanted to do a little bit more of a kind of serious edit. And then I'm using a lot of different AI tools now to kind of break and
Oh, I
repurpose
love
content.
Adobe's
So,
audio, AI audio enhance,
oh
one
my
click studio
goodness.
audio, one
Yes.
click studio quality audio.
Yes.
Even if you have a $50 microphone, you click this button, you have studio quality audio. So now
Yep.
there's very little excuse on that. Now you
Right.
can get bad audio. I had a bad audio experience the other day from recording in my basement. Something went wrong with one of them, with the mic I was actually using. And so then the backup mic was too far away. So
Right.
I can't put a solution that solves that problem forever now. But I had 2 videos with like audio that even Adobe's Audio Enhance couldn't really get to my standards, but it was able to make them passable. So I
Right.
could live with some comments on the audio side of it. I was like, yep, nope, here's what happened. And I just addressed that in the comments, but it was still passable to where you could hear and understand everything. It just wasn't up to my standards. But now I have a way to do that, because now I use the Sony XLR accessory. I have 2 backups that are all in line to the camera. So the actual camera would have to fail for me to have bad audio at this point. But that's also a really expensive solution.
Yep.
The only reason I could do it was because this was a see the Sennheiser plus this was a $1,800 solution for my basement setup. This was an $1,800 solution for my basement setup, which people might think is excessive, but for what I'm doing, it's not. Especially if you want like a $5,000 like a month sponsor, it's like, oh, it's not excessive to do that investment in that. Well, I'll tell you about the video editing thing to get it out of the way is it's fine to use affordable tools. I think that iMovie is a time suck. After a certain point, a lot of people use it because it's free and they have it and it's accessible. There are better free tools than iMovie, and it's a time suck. Adobe Rush. I know people are going to call me an Adobe shill, but Adobe Rush is better. You get multiple video tracks, multiple audio tracks. There's almost nothing that a big creator is doing that you cannot do if you just used Adobe Rush.
Right.
DaVinci Resolve is also free. And with the free version, there's nothing you can't do that big creator is doing if you use the free version of DaVinci Resolve. And when I say this, I mean there's nothing that Ryan Trahan, Eric, and MrBeast are doing that you cannot do using Adobe Rush or DaVinci Resolve. They had some controversy. Filmora is affordable for a lot of you. They had some controversy on their lifetime licensing. They walked that stuff back. So again, it's fine now. But if you don't want to forgive or forget, I accept that. The other thing I'll tell you is you don't need that many video techniques to compete with the largest creators in the world. You don't need that many video techniques. The main video techniques that the biggest creators in the world are using when they're not using green screen like me or like John Prosser or something like that, the biggest techniques that the biggest creators are using is they're using motion text graphics. MrBeast motion text graphics is actually a simple tutorial to learn. If you understand the basics of your video editing program, most of this will be Premiere Pro for a lot of people. Yay, the dreaded subscription model. It's like, it's just good software and the biggest YouTubers use it. Again, also Final Cut and DaVinci. Those are the big 3. But everyone can learn the motion graphics text technique that MrBeast is using. The transitions, just buy transitions packs and you have the same transitions as MrBeast. The most important things a lot of you could learn before you even try to do that is most of you are bad at color correction. I'm not talking color grading stylistically. I mean just getting skin tones right. A lot of you don't get it right in camera and you don't get it right in post. Just learn color correction and to get accurate skin tones of your self or your subject. Learn audio correction. Either use Adobe's AI Audio Enhance or learn basic audio correction so that you learn basic de-reverb, de-noise, and maybe some like band processing that might be like good, some equalizing. Like if you could just get basics on that, you're fine. But a lot of it can be done with one-click presets, or you could literally pay somebody $50 in Fiverr to make the perfect 3 presets for your 3 microphones that you might be cycling through. And then it's done and it's a one-click preset now in your software. So like it's super simple. And then learn how to cut and where to cut and learn the proper cut techniques for editing. If you do those 3 things as your foundation, once you learn now to stack on top of that, like sound design and audio mixing and motion graphics, and on top of that for the animated text portion, and then learn transitions. If you just have those 6 techniques, you are already doing like 80% of what every big YouTuber does in terms of the edit. And that's it. There's not much more techniques that are being used by big YouTubers than that. What? Ken Burns effect? It's like throwaway tutorial, 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I tell people all the time, it's a stair step, right? Like, you start down here and you continue to upgrade as you get money and funds to be able to invest back into your channel. I started out, I remember, with the Blue Snowball, and then got a Blue Yeti, and then got the Shure SM7B. And then when I started getting into voice acting, I got a really nice, $2,000-$3,000 microphone. And people were like, oh my gosh, you spent $3,000 on your microphone. Well, that's like, back in the day, that was like 2 or 3 jobs, back in the day of doing voiceover. So it's one of the things to where knowing where you're at, getting there, and understanding that it is a progressive kind of tier system. So, all right. So we've done through 7 right now. We got to go a little faster because me and
Let's
you.
The good news is these get simpler as they go up.
I love it. So number 6 is what?
Creating thumbnails. They have to pass the vibe check, be visually interesting, inform the viewer with storytelling, be bold with contrast, and then be eye-catching. Vibe check. That's the framework I teach.
Do you think that you have to put your face in the thumbnail to be successful?
No. Marquez Brownlee mostly used products. Dave 2D mostly used products. It depends on your niche. The faceless creators, they don't put their face in, they put the subject. Magnates Media is one of my favorite faceless channels. His face is never in his videos, let alone in his thumbnails. He doesn't even always have a face, even when he's covering something. But if he does, it's like, someone he's covering, JBP Morgan or Elon Musk or, Mark Zuckerberg or something like that. Like How Money Works, another faceless channel. He doesn't put his face in everything. James Johnny's barely on camera. His face is in the thumbnail. The subject matter is. You can do, and again, product reviewers, all the best product reviewers on YouTube, face is never in the thumbnail.
Yeah. So my most successful videos has, like, if I'm covering a bit of software, it'll have their logo in it, right? So I went through, just to be transparent with you guys, I went through a phase a couple of months ago where I was testing out Midjourney AI, where I would get the Midjourney tool to produce whether it be an attractive male or attractive female, and I would use it on my thumbnail, and it worked for the most part. I mean, the videos didn't do any worse or any better, but it worked. And so I think that if you think there is a cookie cutter method of thumbnails, I think that you're probably not. I mean, I look at Mr. Beast and I look at like what Patty and those guys have done, over there or whatever it may be, and I look at the thumbnail evolution of his channel and the different successful creators, and they're obviously they're really stressing over these specific little elements of a thumbnail, and I love that. I love that there's data behind that and what works and what doesn't. But like you said, Roberto, you got to find what works for your channel. What is the thumbnail design? What is the streamlined design that people see it in suggested videos and they say that's a Roberto video, that's a Dusty tutorial, whatever it is, you want them to know that from the thumbnail. And a good thumbnail design will do that. So any final words on thumbnail design?
Thumbnail design, good thumbnail design, like I said, it passes the vibe check. There's not a specific, like, oh, it has to be this, it has to be that. It's like I said, it has to be visually interesting. So what does that mean to your audience avatar? Visually interesting to who? Your audience avatar. Inform through storytelling. What's the subject matter? How can we inform and tell a story in a thumbnail for what our video is? It's not a universal concept. That's why I give frameworks and principles in what I teach. If I coach someone one-on-one, I'll be specific. But like, I think that people look at the biggest creators and then I have to make it look like them or like that. And it's fruitless, because it's like, what would really make you smart is not copying them and then making your thing that. Copying them and learning the techniques that it takes to make the best thumbnails in the world. Just like when I was a graphic designer, what did I do? I would go and then in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, I would recreate the magazine covers that I saw at Barnes and Noble. I would recreate the billboards in my town. I would go and find things that won an award somewhere. And then I'd say, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to recreate that in Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, not to post it as my own work, to recreate it so I understand what technique allows me to make award-winning work. What techniques are award-winning designers using? And then, okay, now that I know these techniques, I can apply them to whatever my vision is. So you have to understand these things. And then it has to be bold and eye-catching. You just have to understand regular human psychology. But again, if I'm talking to one group of people, one color palette might do better than another based on demographics or based on subject matter or based on matching the brand that I'm talking about. Maybe I use again, if you're a gamer and you're playing Clash Royale and everything like that, there are colors that make sense if you're in that Clash Royale Supercell ecosystem. Okay. If you're talking about YouTube, we're going to use YouTube's version of what Red is, like it's just a fact, right? So we're going to do these things. We're gonna have a color palette based on these things and then eye-catching can mean a lot of things. Like you said, it could be attractive male or female, but it also could be a logo. It could also be showing off the product. It could also be the top down, like Marquez, of a top down of a high-end consumer product. So you just have to figure out what that framework looks like applied to you, and that's why we have the vibe check.
All right, absolutely, I agree 100%. What is number 5?
Creating titles. Probably the most important skill besides anything with producing quality content itself. If you want to get high value content, it largely starts with the idea, but the idea can only be communicated through what? The title and the thumbnail. Your topic selection, it manifests itself in the title and a thumbnail. And with titles, people do not realize that they need to make their titles simple and easy to understand, but they also need to make their titles emotionally engaging. It takes a high degree of emotional intelligence to write and craft good titles. You and I write more literal titles instead of more visceral titles, but we'd get more views if we write visceral titles. And when I have written visceral titles, it's done better. One of my highest performing videos, I think it has 250,000 views and everything like that. YouTube not paying creators with not paying in caps for it was like something like YouTube not paying creators while monetizing videos. Like that was a visceral title. It elicits a reaction. It elicits a response. And what was the video thumbnail? It was me like this, frustrated, and then it was the YouTube frowny face, and then it was the text in the thumbnail was not paying creators. That entire title and thumbnail combination was entirely predicated on emotional intelligence of I wanted to reflect the frustration of the small creator. So I wanted to validate their feelings and consolidate on those feelings and then say, here's the policy change. Here's the reality. Here's what it means. Here's what I disagree with. Here's why I think they're doing this. Here's what you need to look to do in the future. And laid it out. 250,000 views. Like very loosely edited video. No over editing. All because, and again, 250,000 views, all because of what? The title was emotionally compelling, seized on an emotion, consolidated those feelings, and the thumbnail reflected those feelings accurately and told the story at a glance of this video speaks to me.
Yeah, the combination of a lot of things that we've talked about so far today, we've talked about monetization, we've talked about content strategy, we've then talked about storytelling, and then we then talked about thumbnails and titles and how those things kind of work together as a creator is very important. And the way that I've designed my titles now or curate them is a lot different with AI tools and things like that to give me some ideas and to spur some thought process. And so the tools that we're using are different, but the idea is the same. So
I use ChatGPT now to start crafting some of these ideas. And the thing is, I don't always do this. It's actually worked out really well when I have, but a lot of my students and a lot of my coaching clients, it's become their secret weapon. In fact, with something I sell, which is creator prompts, awesomecreatoracademy.com/creator prompts. We actually, for $10 have this thing with 200 ChatGPT prompts. I added my advanced title generator prompt. It's literally 3 paragraphs to turn ChatGPT into the perfect copywriter for a YouTube. It's a prompt that's 3 paragraphs long, but it will be a title generator that's very good. Once you tell it who your audience is and what your idea is, it will be able to really craft those. And it's just the way I figured it out, to your point with AI is scaling creators, because it's like, if you use AI correctly, it's not a replacement. It's a co-collaborator. It's a co-creator. It's a co-pilot. Because what I did was basically I used the prompts to give a creative brief the way I would give a creative brief to a freelancer or an employee.
Right. I am going to do something that I rarely do. I know Roberto is willing to come back on the show. We are 45 minutes in right now, and we're only halfway through our list. I don't want to devalue the next 5 items on our list because I think that they deserve the full kind of care and attention and in detail explanation. And so I want to have him back on here in maybe a month or so. Roberto, is that something that you'd be willing to do to finish this list with me and kind of do a part 2 of this segment?
Yeah, I'm happy to do part two. I think we have like 4 more to go. And the thing is,
Yes.
the reason I think they're in the top 4 is I think that they are probably that important and they are a struggle. Do you mind if I just like
Go
give
through
them
them.
the remaining
Yes.
ones?
Yes. Go ahead.
It's going to be the generating ideas. So it's going to be coming up with ideas and concepts for your videos in the first place. So it's basically topics out of topic, title, and thumbnail. It's generating ideas. It's the topics. Number 3 is how to stand out as a creator, especially as a new creator, if you want to go into a saturated niche. And I got a great case study with that because my friend Pat Flynn was
Yeah.
nobody in the Pokemon community and
And
went
now
from
yeah.
zero to he's over 600,000 now in 2 years with him and his team at Deep Pocket Monster. So I have a great story about the things that it takes to actually stand out as a creator in a saturated niche
Yes.
specifically. Choosing your niche and how choosing your niche, a niche is not a prison, and that you actually choosing your niche is just saying, here is my audience. A niche is not what people think. You're not niching down
It's not a
to an
box.
idea. It's not a box. It's that you're saying, this is the people I'm for. This is who my community is. So here are the things that matter to this community. And then finally, creating and posting consistently, especially if you're a working class creator who has a 40-hour week day job. How are you going to pull this off? How are you going to actually be consistent on YouTube and build up? And what content is going to be right size in your life? That is like a big one. It's something that could be an entire podcast episode by itself. So I think with us covering like those 4 big ideas, that gives us an entire show in terms of a sequel for this.
Absolutely. Tune back in, guys, because I really want us to, and you may be wondering, I have people ask me, why do you keep it to 45 minutes? The reason that I do is I have a lot of people who are on commutes or they don't have a lot of time during the day to consume 2-3 hour marathon sessions, but they can break it down into segments and listen to the podcast that way. So I have gotten some feedback and I have kind of via data decided that's how I want to structure the podcast.
Smart.
Roberto and I could talk about this stuff literally for hours. We could be on this podcast for 3.5 hours and still have stuff. That's why as creators, we're able to produce content because we have these ideas and we have these topic points. And the thing about Roberto and what we've done today, every point that he mentioned, I could probably make 3 to 5 to 10 podcast episodes just about one of those points and be able to get those flesh those out even more. So Roberto, you've been awesome. I want to ask you a final question before we do sign off today, though, going against a little bit of what I just said. If you were starting or trying to grow a channel on YouTube right now, what would be, I mean, you know, I know this is a very long kind of question, but like just
I love this one.
Briefly, like what would you do? Like what would be your strategy?
First thing I would do is I would bone up on my skills. I would have my skills in line. And so the first thing I would learn is I would learn how my camera works and I would learn the best settings for my camera. So things like knowing that I'm going to shoot in 30 frames per second, 1080, you know, that I want a blurry background. So I'm going to shoot it like f2, f2.8. What does a lens let me do that? I can get all of that out of a $500 camera from Sony, the Sony ZV-1F starter camera. I can get that out of a $500 camera. I would learn what it takes to get good audio and mic technique and realize that I need to get the mic close to me and that maybe what I'm going to do, because I'm like, if I'm broke, what I'm going to do is probably do what I did when I was broke. I'm probably going to get a $20, $30 Sony microphone, clip it onto my lapel or clip it on like just out of frame of my shirt or something like that, get it close to me. And then I'm going to run an aux cable that's $10, $15 all the way to the camera so that I don't have to sync up the audio in person, become a master technician so that I can do that. I'm going to learn the basics of video editing software. I'm going to learn to either get my skin tones, especially as a darker person, right in camera. I'm going to learn some basic lighting technique. I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy $100 to $200 worth of lights. So I'm either going to get an $80 ring light, or if I want to wear my glasses, like I can't do an $80 ring light. So then I'm going to light from the sides with some newer panel lights probably. So probably spend $160 on those. Boom. I have that. I'm cheap. I'm under $800 here, like already with lights, camera, audio. And so now I'm going to have the foundation for, okay, it's not garbage going in, so I'm not going to get garbage going out. What's my next layer of skill? I'm going to learn a video editing software. If I'm broke, it's going to be DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Rush because they're probably the 2 best free editors that I can get. If I need screen recordings, if I'm an Apple or Mac person, I'm probably going to go with QuickTime. But if I like can't do that, I'm going to find some other free editor like VS CD or something like that. Some other free screen recorder or a cheap screen recorder somewhere under $100. If I'm smart, I'll save up and get Camtasia, not sponsored. And so that'll be my thing. And then I know, all right, for screen recordings, I got that. I can like make good content here. Oh, like I'll get royalty-free music. I'll use YouTube's audio library, whatever. B-roll, I'll probably use Pixabay or something like that. If I need that, or I'll just pay for story blocks, figure it out. $100 a year, I think, whatever. Okay, cool. Maybe some creators running a coupon code. And then I would just like try to learn basic editing techniques of like, okay, show and tell, or maybe all my B-roll is myself. Maybe I film myself in terms of all my B-roll. So as far as that, I would just learn how to not put garbage into my editor to start with, so that I don't get garbage out, and I wouldn't rely on my editing to save me. So I would have like, I would build the foundation of my skills to actually produce good content. Then I would start honing in on my ideas. I'd have to find something I'm passionate about. If it's me, and if I wanted to go the entertainment route, let's say I went the entertainment route just because it's a fun what if, instead of me doing, oh, you use all my knowledge and education. Because like, what if people have no like trade or any skill set or no previous career? Fine. I just talk about Star Wars. I just talk about Star Wars or Pokemon. Let's go with Star Wars. I just talk about Star Wars. Great. That's saturated niche. Star Wars Theory has 3 million subscribers, blah, blah, blah. Saturated niche. What are you going to do? It's like, okay, well, not every Star Wars YouTuber is the same. For one thing, Star Wars Theory, one of my favorite channels, he focuses on Lucas era Star Wars or criticizes Disney Star Wars. And so so that's it. There's almost no talk of the Old Republic, which I love. There's almost no talk of the lore that exists in the video games, which I love. It's just Lucas era versus Disney. That's it for the most part. And by the way, I say that as a fan and someone who loves Star Wars Theory. So what would I do that's different? I would probably focus on Old Republic era. I would actually probably focus a lot on Legends, and I'd also probably focus a lot on the dark side, because everybody wants to, oh, Luke Skywalker this, Luke Skywalker that. It's like, I want to talk about Darth Bane. I want to talk about Darth Plagueis. I want to talk about Darth Tenebris. I want to talk about Darth Ruin. I want to talk about Revan. I want to talk about, the Sith Emperor Vitiate. I want to be the big Star Wars nerd that talks about all this obscure dark side lore and the Sith, and like how totally like dope they were and everything like that, and like some of these like really ridiculous feats of force powers that they had. So I would just make a Star Wars lore channel, and I would go daily. I'd probably just go daily, because it's like, oh great, I can talk about Star Wars every day. What's the downside here? Oh, this is some Crucible. Oh, this is some chore. I can talk about Star Wars every day. Probably in my case, probably go into Midjourney, generate a bunch of cool Midjourney art to use in the channel to make it unique, make all these unique thumbnails, really have these really awesome looking iterations of these Sith Lords in my thumbnail, use some basic Photoshop. Boom. I've got a unique looking brand, unique looking channel. I've got a unique angle to Star Wars where I'm probably almost exclusively focusing on the dark side and like, the Sith Empire and the Jedi Sith Wars, like that era of Star Wars. So now I consolidate on all the dark side fans, all the Old Republic era fans. And then this is still a group of people who might be dissatisfied with what Disney's doing and say, this is the era of Star Wars I love the most. Thank you for having a channel dedicated to that. There are millions of fans who might love that. So I know that that's a 0 to 100,000 subscriber channel at some point if I go daily catering to Star Wars fans who are not being served by the biggest Star Wars channels, because the biggest Star Wars channels are chasing the trendy stuff of what's going on now, Lucas this, Kathleen Kennedy this, blah, blah, blah. I would just go and consolidate on Star Wars fans on the thing that they're passionate about that nobody is talking about, so that they can be served. And I know, based on the number of people who bought the Star Wars Old Republic game, the number of people who bought Knights of the Old Republic and loved it and grew up with that content, the number of people from that, and the millions and millions of people who bought the Darth Bane trilogy books, I know that there's an audience for dark side lovers, and I know that there's an audience for Old Republic Star Wars fans. So I would just consolidate on those. Yeah, we could talk about some of the current stuff, and then the new Star Wars show, The Acolyte, and then Ahsoka. They're going to tap into some dark side lore that we haven't heard before, but I could just consolidate around that. And that would be my approach today. Is if I was an entertainment channel, I would tie myself to a franchise that has literally hundreds of millions of fans, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Pokemon, find a unique subsect of that audience that is underserved, approach them with a fresh, unique angle, and then also give them serviceable quality content. And I would just fill in the gaps that the big channels aren't filling in for them.
Yeah, no, I love that. Really, you basically, he gave you the whole, basically his thought process of what he would do if he started a new channel. So that should let you, hopefully, as you're listening to this, make some light bulbs go off like, oh, I should have done that, or why don't I do this, or why can't I implement this? As you can tell, he's very passionate about what he talks about, whether it's helping other content creators or creating his own content. And it takes that. It takes a personality. It takes someone bought into what they're doing. And Roberto, I thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an amazing episode full of just nuggets that people can pull out. And I'm certainly going to go back and listen again myself. And I know other people will as well. Can you let people know where they can get in touch with you or find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet everywhere at Roberto Blake. You can find me at YouTube at Roberto Blake. YouTube.com/@Roberto Blake. Over 1,600 videos there to help content creators. You can also find me on Twitter. I drop some of my best nuggets for free over on Twitter at Roberto Blake. You can, connect with me on Threads because we're all doing that now, right?
Of course we are.
And then also, if you want to work with me, check out www.awesomecreatoracademy.com. You can either join the pro group. We have a lot of wonderful folks over there. We do 2 office hour sessions every week, or you can work with me one-on-one and I can help you get up and running. The only main requirement to work with me is you must already be monetized, or if you're not, you must already be a business owner or have a trade.
Love it. Absolutely. And all those links will be in the show notes as always. And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks, Roberto.
Take care.